Tim, what's up, brother?
What's up, Rich?
How
How we
you
doing?
been?
Thanks
Good.
for having me, man. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. I
Of
appreciate
course.
you.
That-
So it's kind of funny. You know how many hits I get from the video we did, the podcast we did with yours, the Ghost of Real Estate, I think it was.
Yeah, get a
Every
lot.
freaking person I talk to talks about that podcast. How's it going? How's it doing?
Good. Yeah, it's going good, man. It's interesting. The podcast is an interesting thing. It's just like a thing of like validation, right? People like to listen to it, learn. There's some good topics on there, and I think you taught a lot. Maybe that's why people are going back to it.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's really cool. What? How are you still shooting it or?
You know what? I haven't in a while, but doing this one is going to make me get back into it a bit.
Good. I'm glad to cost you money. I guess
Yeah,
to do it.
exactly.
Otherwise, how's business?
Business is good, man. It's a very interesting market as you know. But I think we're going to see a big surge in homes coming onto the market. I would say I would say right after the holidays would be my guess. And I think the reason for that is I think people right now, I think it was interest rates. Now I think people are spooked over the election. And I think with interest rates falling as they are, if they drop just a little bit more, see the problem is everyone refied in 2020, 2021.
Sure.
They got 2-3% interest rates, right? You want to sell that home, and even though you might want to sell and move, you might not be able to do it because the cost of a home at a higher interest rate, double or triple what you have it at, you might not be able to afford it, or you just don't want to pay it.
Of course.
So I think that with them coming down, I think if the election wasn't around the corner, I think more there would be more movement. I think people are waiting for the election to pass. Then the holidays are going to be here, so I think right after the holidays is going to be prime time, and I think it will turn into a buyer's market.
Wow. Wow. So you're saying the start of 25,
Yeah,
roughly, and then you see it getting into a buyer's market when?
I would say March.
March.
Yeah, I think
Wow,
so.
that's soon.
I think the consumer, or not, the consumer and the seller, I think they have the common misconception is most home sales are going to be done in the springtime, right? Which isn't necessarily true. But people want to wait for that time because they feel like it's some magical time where they'll get more for the home. So I think that everything will come together right after the holidays, leading into the March season for spring. I think a lot will be on the market.
What's the inventory like now?
It's still low. It's weird though. You get people downsizers. It depends. It depends a lot on the financial situation with interest rates. But people are selling more so that they need to, versus that they want to or they want an upgrade. Right. You see a lot of people doing additions to homes to fit additional family in, which will be interesting in the long term as well too with sales. If I were to do an addition onto my father's home, for example, um, when he would normally sell, am I now going to sell? Right. So I think it will have a long term effect as well too. The whole COVID into the high interest rates. But it will all shake out how it's supposed to.
That's interesting. Yeah, we were just talking about this not too long ago about the interest rates, and I'm a believer of it. I think I think they're going to level out a little bit. My opinion is they'll level out. You'll see possibly another drop by the end of the year,
Mhm.
and then I think the low fives by next year. I
Yeah.
think 26.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you're saying that. You're not the first person that said that to me. A lot of people say at the beginning of 2025. I just think it's gonna stale out for a little bit because of everything that's going on. With the election and just the storms, everything that's affecting the
Yeah.
planet right now. It's just I think it's just going to everything affects the real estate market in some way. Um, but I don't see it. I don't think it's gonna, my opinion. Again, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I think it's going to be a seller's market for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
My
I mean,
opinion, because the rates, historically, what do you see the rates coming down to?
I think 4.5 to 5.
4.5 to 5. So if they
Again,
come,
this is all speculative.
of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have a crystal ball. If you do,
Right.
let me know so that we could then capitalize on it. That's I guess why you do so well and everything else you do. You got that crystal ball. But uh, I believe once you start seeing the refis come back,
Yeah.
is when you'll start seeing the buyer's market coming into effect. So when do you see we're not mortgage brokers, but when do you think the refi boom is going to come back where people would start refinancing out of those 3.5 rates into a 5 or 4.5? What rate do you think that's going to be to adjust it? Because so many people right now are behind on their credit card debt and they're paying 27. but they don't want to refinance their home,
Right.
because of the interest rate they got. So it's really interesting what's going on in the world.
Well, I think even more of an interesting twist to that is if you're far behind and you have that much credit card debt, you're paying $1,000 for a Nissan Altima, right?
Yeah,
How are you going to refi?
it's interesting. Yeah, it's creepy.
You might not qualify for it, right? So I think things are going to get really interesting because you're right. People are. I don't know how people. I don't get it. I don't understand. I mean, the cost. I hate to sound cliche, and what you hear on the news or whatever, but the costs for eggs or milk or this, that, the other, everything is expensive, man. It's crazy. I mean, you go to the deli to get lunch, it's eating easy $20,
Yeah,
right?
and Uber Eats is what, $60
Oh yeah,
just to deliver it?
yeah. They
Oh my
always bang
God.
you up on those. Yeah,
It hit you hard. But you're right, everything's so expensive. But you know what was interesting too? Everybody was refinancing back in the day, and it was like a second job for most people.
hmm
Every year or 2 years, they would refi, get out of debt, and then get right back into it, get
right.
back into it. And then with the equity in their home, it just kept going and kept going. I think that's finally starting to slow down.
Yeah,
So, what do you think going on that? Because I know you're interested in buying and always interested into the REOs and the foreclosures. Where do you see that going with the short sales and
I think it depends heavily on people's ability to refinance, right? Because I do think that people are in over their heads. I mean, think about it. If you make, let's do simple math, right? What would you say is the average household income on Long Island?
120 maybe? 100?
Say 120. Just quick, easy math. That's
Yeah.
10,000 gross
A month.
a month, right? So if you're grossing 10,000, that means let's call you're taking home 6,500,
Okay.
right? After taxes.
Yep.
A home that's an average cost of home, let's say 700,000, right? Plus your taxes on Long Island. You're working to pay your mortgage,
Oh, my God.
right? So
It's creepy.
how you going out to eat? How you feeding your family, right? What are you doing for entertainment? But, you stack if you're stacking everything on credit cards, you're not going to be able to refinance. Your debt to income ratio is going to be way off. So
Wow.
the next question then becomes, what will HUD or what will private banks or what would anyone do to push the threshold of what you can qualify for a refi? And if they push that, to me, it's just kicking the can down the road, right? So if I'm making this up, I don't know the exact thresholds, but say it's a 50% debt to income cutoff. Let's make it 60. Let's make it 70. Right? You're just kicking it down the road. So
So you're back into like the 2009 era.
I think eventually it could lead there. I mean, hopefully we're under good leadership where that's avoided. I just think the cost of everything is crazy. I mean, 7 years ago you can go out to dinner for depending where you're going, 100, $150, no problem.
Good luck today.
Yeah, forget about it.
Yeah.
For two people.
Go to McDonald's for $150
Yeah,
now. It's insane.
it is nuts, man. So as far as back to your original question of short sales and foreclosures, I think it's going to be heavily weighted on how. If I'm assuming that people are in debt, then my question would be, how are they going to refi out of that debt? And if they can't, then I think that's where the problem is going to lie. And I think that you would see an uptick based on that. But and then you'll have your traditional, foreclosures as well too. I think that will just always be a constant of a certain amount of people. The question is, well, will there be an uptick because of you don't have a way out?
Is the equity still in the homes?
Yeah, I mean the thresholds are there for a reason, right? I mean, you can only take X percent of LTV. I think the equity is there in the homes today,
Okay.
right? But if interest rates, again, for anyone listening to, I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just my speculation. But if interest rates
The
do go
blind leading the blind here.
yeah, right.
So,
But theoretically, if interest rates go to 4.5%, and I'm right in saying that people do want to move, but they're not moving because they were holding to their 2 to 3% interest rate. Interest rates go to 4.5. People are like, all right, that's good enough. It's not going to go back to where it was. Let's move. Homes go onto the market. It transitions into a buyer's market from there. Um, that means that the price of homes would come down
possibly.
traditionally. Is it going to come down 25%? I don't think so, especially on Long Island. Um, could it come down 10%? I think that's very possible. And if that does happen, well, guess what else just went down?
Everything else.
Your equity. right? So I think equity today is still on point due to the guidelines that are put in place on loan to value ratios on, you know, certain things. But, you know, if someone bought a home with an FHA loan, for example, where they're putting 3% down, you know, you might be in some trouble there. You might start seeing things upside down. Um,
Wow.
it's going to be interesting, man. I think it's just been an interesting string of events. No one really knows what the hell is going to happen.
So how are you capitalizing on that? And what are you doing to capitalize?
Yeah, I think you got to be prepared. Real estate sales is a game where, you know, you could just be the traditional retail agent, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think capitalizing doesn't come from predicting a certain situation, right? I think it comes from being prepared for that situation and knowing when it's there. For example, you know, at one point I went heavily into focusing on short sales
Remember that?
because I thought it was happening. Well, I thought wrong, right?
Mhm.
And I paid the price. But I learned a lot, and now I am prepared for when that time does come. I'm ready to pounce on it.
So when you say prepared, were you prepared when you thought the short sales were coming,
Hell
or
no, no. I had to learn everything, and that's a totally different business. You know, totally different. Different people you're dealing with, different circumstances. Every single deal is like taking a look underneath the hood of a car to diagnose it. You know,
what
knowing
do
how
they
to negotiate it,
what do they say again? Failing to prepare is
preparing
preparing
to
to
fail.
fail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, in that situation to distress properties, you know, I took that leap and learned it. And it's a lot to learn. It's a lot to learn. But for me, the way I learn best is doing. Like I could read books all I want and I'll learn basic information.
Yeah.
But, you know, everyone thinks
Best,
they know until they get out there and
best part about failing is that you learn not to do it
yeah,
again. And if you
right.
do it again, then
You know how to
obviously,
do it right.
correct. And
Right.
it's I was in that world way back when, and I saw it. I saw it go from the distressed properties back to normal, and they said it would never become distressed again.
Right.
And I said, well, give it some time. It will.
Yeah.
Obviously it will. Everything comes back. We're in a industry that just cycles,
100%.
right? And it was just interesting, like picking up properties back, and it's similar. Not interesting. It's similar to 2008, 2009, being able to pick up properties, cheaper, and then going out there and selling them in a couple of
Yeah.
years afterwards. I heard you having a conversation before we walked in here with somebody, and you were talking about. I think that person just bought a home, correct?
Yeah.
And what advice were you giving her?
Oh, the person I was speaking with? No,
Yeah.
no, no. That was for a different situation of it wasn't even anything to do with real estate.
No, no, you were having a conversation with Julia earlier
Oh, yeah,
about the
yeah,
real
yeah.
estate, about buying a property, and what was the best? What's the best advice you would give her? Hold
Uh,
it, sell it. What would you?
hold. I mean, Julia's 27, 26 years old. You know, she's hopefully buying her first home. She's right under contract, and I was just
It's awesome.
giving some advice. I mean, look, the average appreciation rate on Long Island is 4.5% per year, right? So just simple math, rule of 72. You know, every 17, if my math is correct, every 17, 18 years, so I think 17 and a half years, your home value is going to double,
It's awesome.
right? Holding is going to be the best strategy if it makes financial sense in between the point of buying and selling, right? Depends what your plan is with the property.
So, are you one of those guys when if if she was looking to buy her second home, would you convince her to hold that property
Absolutely.
instead and then refinance?
Yes.
Would you refinance out of it, or and then buy, or would you try to pay it down and just own it outright? Because we had these
Yeah.
conversations a long time ago with everything my aunt does.
Yep.
With buying and selling. How her model was: you buy the first house,
Hmm.
then get enough equity in it, buy two more,
Hmm.
pay off the first house with all the equity that's coming in from the other apartments, and then just constantly just repeat and
Yeah.
just keep repeating, and then eventually you own them all outright.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I would say in that case scenario of whether or not you should refi would greatly depend on your cash on hand
Of course.
or access to other people's money,
Mhm.
private money lending. Um, you know, you want to keep at the same time too. You don't want to be under leveraged, right? But it depends on what you're looking to do and what your goals are really. If your goal is to get more longer term play for equity, then yeah, stretch it as far as you can. Personally, I don't like to go above 60% LTV.
Okay.
Um, that's just a personal preference. I don't want to be over leveraged. But in that situation, if her plan was, hey, I have a job where I'm making X amount, I'm good, and I'm just buying all these properties for the future, then yeah, I would. I would use that money and I would buy properties knowing that I'm not necessarily in this for the cash flow of those properties, but the equity in those properties. If you were in it for the cash flow in that property and your goal was, hey, I want to retire based on the cash flow of properties, then I would say, well, you want that to be, you want the balance on the mortgage to be as low as possible so your cash flow on more.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what else is going on in Tim's world?
What else going on in my world? Work, man. This is, real estate it's a very, first off, I don't even know how I got into real estate, but I did. And when I got in, I realized there's a lot.
What did you do prior to the real estate? Tell everybody if you're okay with it.
Of course. So my background is consumer packaged goods. So I went to Stony Brook University, and while I was at Stony Brook, I got an internship with Vitamin Water. Their warehouse or their distributor was based out of Maspeth, Queens. So I would go in the morning. I would service as an intern in the downtown Manhattan area. Then I would go to night school at Stony Brook, and I would sell vitamin water into delis and whatever different chain stores.
This is when it first came out.
No, this is a little bit longer down. It was like right at the merger with Coca-Cola.
Okay.
So they were a big brand at that point.
Very big.
Yeah. And then from there, I worked with a few other beverage companies.
Okay.
I then started, and I was doing a lot of traveling. So I would call on accounts like, Target, Costco, Whole Foods, and I would fly around the country and I would meet with, they have, each of these chains have what's called a buyer. Right?
Okay.
That buyer accepts your product, they slot it onto the shelves. I would deal with them and get products accepted, set up distribution and the sales team. And from there, I then started my own supplement company. I was producing, manufacturing protein supplements and selling them on Amazon. And it's a great business. Really tough game.
I can imagine
A lot of capital, man. A lot of capital, a lot of competition, and Amazon's very expensive. And then the way I got into real estate was because as I was doing the supplement business, I wasn't making money. So I had taught myself how to make websites for the Amazon for my supplement business. So I started making websites for people just by knocking on doors, restaurants, whatever. And one guy said to me, he goes, "You know what? I want to sell my restaurant." And for some reason, I had taken the real estate school. I was living in Manhattan like 7 years prior. And they said, all right, no problem, sell for you. So
business. Yeah.
I said, listen, just give me 2 weeks. Let me just go take this test and I'll sell it for you. And the guy who gave me the mortgage on my home before I was in real estate hooked me up with and said, listen, go talk to this guy, Keller Williams. And that was it. That's how I got, that's how I got into it. And I just picked up the phone, started cold calling, and just built it from there.
I remember, not to get off topic about you, still about you. We were in a class I was teaching, and you were, I guess it was your first week in the business or whatever.
Yeah.
And you were doing nothing, and you wanted to meet with me. And I don't know what Lauren, said, but you ended up getting in the top 20% within 6 months or something like that, right? In the company. How'd you do that?
Calling. Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing. Like I didn't. I was just broke. So I was like, all right.
How to make money?
Yeah.
It's the best time.
I had a daughter on the way.
Okay.
I just bought a home. I needed to figure this out. And I said, I didn't want to be a real estate agent. I don't know. I didn't understand, I guess, what it.
You wanted to be a business owner.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think it's all the same. It doesn't really matter the product, but I was like, all right, I got to figure this real estate stuff out. And literally one day I went into the office. I just sat down, I picked up the phone and started dialing. And, for some reason, this guy told me to come over for an appointment, right? Somehow I talked to this guy, said, yeah, come over for an appointment. I think it was an expired. And I got there, it was in Syosset. And I brought these papers that were listing documents. I had no idea for this guy to sign. I was the least qualified person to sell this guy's home.
So like my first day, I can't tell you.
Yeah.
It's hysterical.
He goes, we're at his island in the kitchen, takes out, opens the drawer, throws out cards. He goes, look, man, this is everyone who's been here. You're by far the most confident. So where do I need to sign?
That's hysterical.
And I said, shit. Because in my head,
Now what do I do?
I don't know where he needs to sign.
That's hysterical.
I think I had him just sign a couple spots to, I don't know, whatever. And then I did what I normally do, went back to Lauren and said, all right, go figure this out. Help me figure this out here.
That's hysterical. That's similar, like, I think I told you mine, my first day on, made calls, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but I made calls. My first call I made, lady said, come on over. I went over and we liked each other. So she says, all right, I'm going to use you. How much do you charge? And my response was, I don't know. It's my first day on the job. And she said, I'll give you 6%. It was a co-op in Clearview Garden. And I said, okay. And, next guy, I get back to the office. The next call I make is, a guy, his first name was Rob. I won't say his last name. And he says, I'm not selling. I went over there. He was an ex-fireman. He was a retired fireman who was just about to retire. And I said, start bullshitting. And all of a sudden he says, all right, you know what? Let's do it. But I'm only going to do it for 3%.
Right.
I said, 3% is better than no percent. I didn't know anybody. It was my first day on the job. And you're right. I didn't know what I was doing, but I was decent at it.
Right.
And I knew I could do it. Right. And I think that's the misconception on it. Everybody thinks they can do what we do. Right. Because we had that same confidence too, getting into it. But then they realize there's a little bit more than just being confident.
Yeah.
Right. So you still had to learn the process and what to do and then get better at it. Because when you're competing where you were competing, especially the time you were competing, I was lucky. I didn't have to compete against guys like you, Barry, and all of these other monsters in the industry. When I was doing it, it was like 3 of us that were in production at a serious level. Now you're competing against, it just seems like everybody you're competing against is, top broker, right? And it's just interesting because everybody has their own, I guess, experience that they can give to the buyer or the seller. What do you, not to get too specific, what do you do different than the average real estate agent to have the business that you have, and then lead to the other businesses that you created because of it?
Tell people the truth. And I'm not saying other people don't,
Okay.
but I don't. I mean, I've done this throughout my journey where like you want to get a sale and you go in and like you're a salesman. But the reality is that you're not really, in my opinion, you need to you need to really understand. Like if I sit down with you and say, okay, Rich, you're thinking of selling, tell me what's going on. Okay, well, this is a situation, this. Numerous times I've said to them, keep my number, keep my name. Don't sell your home.
Okay.
What are you talking about? Because it's not, in my opinion, it's not the right move for you.
Okay.
Right? I'll do that. And
rightfully you should, because you're there to give them information. It's not like what's
yeah,
best for them.
exactly. And I think that's the name of the game, right? It's providing value. And as you go, the amount of knowledge that I've gained is tremendous. And being able to really provide that to others, navigate through situations, right? Don't be an order taker, right? Provide value, figure out a situation and be a problem solver.
Okay.
Right? And get people to their goal. That's the name of the game. And if you could do that, I don't think many people do, man. I think most people are order takers. I think most people say, you want to sell your home? Okay, great. Here are the comps. This is what it's worth. Here's when we're going to list it. Okay, great. Just sign here, 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 and here. It's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But I think that people, when you provide value, it's more than just a sale.
Yeah, I agree.
Right. And you could see it too, because people really lean on you through every step along the process. And it's a great feeling. Not only is it a great feeling, it results in better sales.
Without doubt. Yeah.
Because guess what happens when I go through that process with you, you're going to tell your friend, you're going to tell your cousin, you got to use Tim, you got to, whatever the situation is, and you got to make sure that you're providing, that's just step one. Right now, you need to make sure that you're providing excellent customer service throughout that experience. It's an experience, right? Selling people's home is an experience for them. To me, or to you, or to Joe Blow or Mary, real estate agent, it's a transaction, right? Because this is what we did, right? Same thing with an operator at Disney World. To them, they're just running the machine to run the ride.
But the person who went there went through a long time to get there. They paid a lot of money to get there. They traveled with their family to get there. They want that damn experience.
That's right.
And you need to be able to deliver that.
It's so true, and it's funny you bring up Disney. I don't know if we talked about this. I thought one of the craziest things about Disney, which I found out reading about it, and customer service is key.
Yeah.
And Disney, the biggest thing for Disney is they want you to leave there wanting to come back, right?
Yes.
Just like any business,
Yeah.
right? They want you to come back. And I had somebody told me this. It was interesting that they have people circling the parking lot in Disney to make sure you don't have a flat tire.
Really?
And if you do, they change it without you knowing, or they'll fix it without you knowing it, because they don't want you to have a terrible experience when you're leaving the park.
Wow.
If you leave the park with that experience, you're never going to come back.
That's something else.
Yeah. They also have people, from what I was told, that people that worked at Disney and went through their training, that nobody is big enough to not pick up garbage on the floor.
Right.
So the CEO at Disney will be walking in a park, and if he sees something, he would pick it up and throw it in the garbage, because it's about being clean. And if you ever go to Disney, I'm sure you've been there. You got little ones. It's spotless.
Yeah.
It really is.
Unfortunately, I have.
Yeah, I know. It's unfortunately. It's
You know why that is, Mel? When Walt Disney built Disney, if you notice next time you're there, I don't know if you ever go back, but
unfortunately, I will. So, and I love Disney.
he walked around and he would eat a hot dog.
Okay.
And in the amount of time that it took him to eat that hot dog, there better be a garbage pail there. So that's how
Wow.
they keep it that clean, is because there's that many frequency of garbage pails throughout the park.
Wow. I never heard that one.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Wow. So on Disney and on Florida, have you ever bought in Florida? Where are you buying now? Where's the location? Or are you buying? Are you buying
Yeah.
properties? What's Tim Galligan up to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think real estate as a whole, and I guess back to the original point is there's a lot of aspects to it, right? You have the sales, you have the stress properties, which is sales too.
Yep.
You have investing. There's so many different things you can do. For me, the play is to buy and hold properties. Everything else is just money, right? But to get out of the rat race, so to say, right, of having to work with rentals is my personal answer to that. I own properties on Long Island, which is phenomenal, right? Like I said, average appreciation rate.
Sure.
Not going to beat that.
Sure.
I mean, there's a couple places in the United States that can come close to it, but Long Island is spectacular when it comes to that. I am buying out of state, not in Florida, and I think I wouldn't be able to give like as advice to someone like, hey, you should go here and buy. Again, it really depends on your goals, right? So for example, if you're like, I love Section 8.
I was going to bring that up. Yep. I'm glad you brought that up.
You
Yep.
know, I love single family home,
Mhm.
right? And people will be like,
Why?
nuts, right? And my answer to that is, I like single family home.
Why do you like saying why? Because I'm sitting there thinking you're pretty much nuts. 'Cause if they don't pay the rent,
Well, there's a couple.
unless you have 100 of them.
Yeah. So the way that Section 8 works, maybe some of the viewers aren't familiar with it, but Section 8 voucher holders receive a voucher from the local municipality, and in most cases, they're responsible for a small portion of the rent, and the township or whoever, or the city or whatever, they pick up whatever that program is through, the Section 8 program is through. They pick up the majority balance, right? Now, there's such a shortage of affordable housing in the United States. Like, for example, on Long Island, I don't want to speak attitude, but I'm pretty sure you can't even get on the wait list anymore.
Wow.
So these people are waiting online to get a voucher for 7 years, 8 years.
Wow.
Then they need to find the home, right?
So
And on Long Island, I mean, there's only a certain number of homes that work for that model.
That's right.
Right? You can't be paying $400,000 for a home and rent it out legally.
Yep.
Right. And that's just not Section 8. That's, any home could be Section 8. There's not like a specific branding of a Section 8 home, right? You could have a home in Huntington that's Section 8. You could have a home in Comac that's Section 8. You could have a home in
Syosset.
Syosset. You can have a home in Shirley. It doesn't matter. What matters is how much you paid for the home to make it worthwhile, and the property taxes.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter.
That's what I was going to ask you. The property taxes on Long Island, how does it?
Again, this isn't just for Section 8. This is anything.
Mhm.
Um,
Especially in a one family, it's so
you gotta,
difficult.
you gotta go with the low in order to cash flow and do it legally, right? And not
Sure.
pop up a home where you're doing, two families in one home. I invest for freedom, right? I don't invest for a headache down the line.
Sure.
Because insurance doesn't cover that home because someone burnt it down.
Sure.
It's supposed to be rent to two people. So to do it the right way, you got to look in areas where the taxes are low. I like the single family home model specifically for Section 8 because if you were getting a Section 8 voucher and you waited 7 years online to get that voucher,
You're not going to mess it up.
dude, you are not going to mess it up. So
Right.
you're getting a free home or close to it, right? Where you're paying a little bit. And I like the single family home versus a duplex, triplex, or apartment building because that's your home, right?
Makes sense.
An apartment it could very well be a home. There's nothing wrong with that. But a single family home has a special feeling to it that this is my home.
Well,
And you make your money by having little turnover, right? So if I have someone in a single family home for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, man, that's beautiful
yes.
because I got paid every single month for
That's right.
all those years versus if it's an apartment, they're moving every year, 2 years, or even 3 years.
Get that lapse.
You get that lapse. You're missing rent 2 months a year, a month a year, right? Now you're depending on the market or there's a lot of different variables. To me, the single family home Section 8 model makes the most sense for that reason. And I got to tell you, I've had nothing but great experience with all my tenants.
That's awesome.
They appreciate me. I appreciate them. They take damn good care of the property. I do quarterly inspections. I kid you not. It's as in good as condition as when I gave it to them.
Well,
Yeah.
if not better, sometimes.
Yeah, if not better. I have some of them call me and say, "Hey, do you mind if I, one house had this is recently, hey, there's shutters that are, blue. I'd like them to be black. Would you mind if I painted the shutters?" Like, one, they called me to ask me,
That's right.
right?
It's
Which is
respect.
very important.
That's right.
So they respect. Two is they're willing to put the work and they didn't ask me for anything to paint those things.
Well,
And I drove by the home. They did a beautiful job, right? So they take care of the property. They really do. From my personal experience, I'm sure there's people with, tons of different stories.
I'm glad you're saying it.
Really what it comes down to is you need to really make sure the person you're putting in there is the right person.
Interesting.
In fact, I don't trust myself to do that. So I have someone who does it for me.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Done the right way. It's a great offering to people who need it. And it's profitable.
So, with that being said, what other opportunities are you seeing out there what other opportunity areas are you seeing where is a good place to buy right now?
I'd say it depends on your goals. And I don't mean to say that as like a brush off answer. If your goal is Section 8 rentals or just rentals and, single family home rentals in general, but the interest rates, the way that they've come down a little bit, but not enough. Right?
Sure.
And the prices, the way that they are, it's very difficult.
Did you ever get into trailer parks?
No, I didn't.
It's a
No.
good business.
I've heard it is.
I was in a few of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never looked at
Section 8 too.
You own the land, right?
Well, it depends.
Right.
So trailer parks, you could have it in two different angles. You could have you own the trailer,
Yep.
and it's funny. There's no title on it. It's a title. It's not it's a car title.
Right.
It's not a home.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting. You take the trailer, you put it on the lot. If you own the lot, you're now getting the $400-500 you're charging
Yeah.
a month to put the trailer on it, and
The
this is
HOA or
correct, the
whatever.
HOA. And then if you own the trailer, you're getting that rent also. So you're getting the rent plus the HOA on it. I did very well on them back in the day in Pennsylvania, and I'm actually looking into a few of them now. One's in Arizona and another one's in upstate New York.
Oh, wow.
Not that expensive, but it from what I see, the ROI is
Yeah.
really good. Yeah, really good. Should look into them.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
I mean, real estate investing is it's tough to beat, man. I mean, you have the cash flow that you're making, which is your cash on cash return. You have appreciation, and someone else is paying your mortgage. How you?
Can't beat that.
It's pretty tough to beat.
So what else is you and your team up to these days?
Well, we got our traditional retail sales going.
Okay.
We have we're dealing with distressed properties, and then we have a big focus on finding properties in this case scenario because of the market out of state, buying old.
Buy and hold. So, now we're coming to an end, and it went by like this today. Always a pleasure talking to you, obviously. But what can I do and Keller Williams do for you that can help your business grow?
Give me money.
Buy me houses.
I think you guys have done a tremendous job, and that's one of the things that I really like. I mentioned earlier, right? I didn't need to worry about figuring it out. I just got what I needed to get done. I realized acquisition. Keller Williams and you have done a great job of allowing me. I'll speak for myself. In the beginning, just to focus on acquisition, because at the end of the day, nothing else matters. Because if you can't acquire, you have nothing, right? And the staff in place, like I said, I would go back to Lauren. Like I didn't, you had to sign here, whatever. I'll go back to Lauren.
Same as your listing back in the day.
Yeah. So having that staff in place to help is extraordinary. What else can you do? For me, I think that I've navigated the investing market. I've been studying it for 5 years. I studied it for a long time before I even buy my first one. I think Keller offering some type of I know that they have the mastermind, or I forget what it is, but the investing,
The wealth building.
and KW Wealth, right? The thing, speaking frankly, I don't like about it is that it's something you need to pay for, and not that I'm cheap and I wouldn't pay for it. But I think opening that to everyone, maybe there's good reason why that doesn't happen. But I think that real estate investing it does. It changed my life and it could change other people's lives. So I think more exposure to not just real estate sales, but real estate as a whole and what it really offers. And I'll bet that by doing that, people will realize quickly, well, if I want to invest, that makes a lot of sense. I better get my ass selling because I need that money to buy.
That's a great point. And with that, do you, not to get personal with your finances, like me, I always put some money aside from every commission when I sold. There was always a percentage that went to the side just for a rainy day or to buy property and invest. I had all different brackets, and at the end, you end up spending where you're playing like 20% to do the things that you want to do. Do you do something like that?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually have for all of my accounts, right? Whether it's a business account or a personal account, I didn't make this up on my own. I forget where I read it, but I have 2 accounts. I have my operating account and a capital account.
Okay.
Right. And I do that on purpose because I want to track and see, like, if everything's in one account and money just flying in and out of it, you're not going to be able to see what's going on unless you sit there and read it every month, which I do too. Every month on the first of the month, I print out all my statements and I read them to make sure. But to your original question, yes, I do. I put aside for holdings.
Taxes, holdings, all of that.
Exactly. And then when I buy properties, I make sure that I allocate for CapEx, repairs, and vacancy. Right. Although I spoke about those things being upfront, making sure when you're rehabbing, you're doing a good job. I still allocate for that. I hold 5% for CapEx, 5% for repairs, 5% for vacancy. So 15% of my top line from each rent is held in holdings in that bank account.
Wow. Okay. What would you say for the average real estate agent, or even the seasoned real estate agent? What advice would you give them in investing?
Pick a path of what your goal is and what's most important to you, right? Because real estate investing is very broad. It's a broad statement, right? You could be flipping, you could be buying notes, you could be holding, there's a million different things you can do. What's most important to you and why? And then really learn about it. Become obsessed with it, right? When I'm driving, I'm always tempted to listen to music.
Yeah, same thing.
But I don't. I put on a book, an audio book. I learn. Like I said, I learned for a long time before even buying my first one. And maybe it's a coincidence, but maybe that's why it's been so far pretty smooth. There's bumps, but it's been pretty smooth. And I think really understanding what you're trying to accomplish and learning the most about it as you can is most important.
Awesome. So I want to give a small plug to somebody. How's Brandon doing?
It's good.
Talked to him lately?
Yeah, I spoke with him last week. Actually, he gave me some pretty good advice. Actually, on one of my difficulties is it's a balancing act, right? Because you have real estate sales, right? You need the money, to invest, and then also focus on the investment. So it's like, with yourself or with the team, is how do you properly prioritize and pull off that balancing act to be able to do both. It's been a pretty good.
Yeah, he's helped me considerably. I was talking to him this morning. He's actually flying to, I think, San Francisco today.
Oh yeah,
He's got to go to a wedding. Yeah, and it was picks up the phone.
more weddings.
That's what I said. I think exactly what I said to him. I think he just makes it up. Yeah, he's just like to fly. He's always like, yeah. No, but this time he said, I'm on a plane. I was like, no, you're not. And then he says, well, you hear in the background, please fasten your seatbelt. Well, I guess you are on a plane this time, because it's just Brandon being Brandon. But anyway, what else, again, is it that you want to plug or talk about in your world that you want to get out there? How is the military thing going?
Good, good. Yeah, yeah.
Real
that's
quick, talk
good.
about that.
Sure. So myself and Brandy partnered up on that, and Lewis as well, and yeah, basically.
You didn't let me in, but thank you. I appreciate that.
Still waiting for you to check.
We got to talk about it. You go.
I've learned a lot through Brandy and her husband Rob on, I still don't nearly understand all of it, but that's a different world, a different animal of how that works. But, the military is moving, right? They need to move, right? They receive orders, they got to move, just like Brandy did.
It's unfortunate. Yeah.
Hawaii and, so they're always on the move. So there's a market to be served there, specifically with people who know what they're talking about, that are ex-military, right, or veterans, or active duty, or agents that could really relate to, hey, this is what I'm going through, and know the lingo, know the talk, and hey, I need to go to, X. I can't even speak it, to be honest with you.
Sure.
That's why Brandy is the face of Brandy.
And you weren't in the service, right?
No.
It's funny, but you not only do that, you talk to the athletes, right? With you, have you ever sold athletes and worked with them to buy and sell, or but you got a couple in the industry, right, where they were given the book of business and
Oh,
were
yeah.
working their
Yeah.
book of business. And
Yeah.
how, couple more questions and then we'll get out of here. But how does that work? Like, where do you think of this stuff where it just comes up to give me a book of business and I'll sell it for you, and you work so well at that level to just constantly come up with ideas. It's something like me
Yeah.
where you're constantly coming up with ideas to make your life just better. How does that? Just take me through that real quick. Like what?
Sure.
Real quick.
You might think I'm a freak, but I'm going to tell you the truth of what I think.
Yep.
I think that everyone has this capability, and I think that the human brain is either distracted or it's not, right? And it can be distracted by numerous different things, right? I think of it as like an engine with pistons, right?
Okay.
Comes down to like taking care of myself mentally, right? For me, that's prayers, meditation, it's reading, right? Am I taking care of myself physically? Okay. It's working out, dieting. Am I always doing the right thing? Even if it's not something I do, like telling the truth, am I always being respectful? Am I helping others? Am I doing everything I can to be positive? Right? Am I helping others? That's a big one. And if I am, my brain, I call it, is in like a free flow state. I believe that. I believe that if you always do the right thing and you're always that disciplined, or I am that disciplined, where I consistently do those things, my brain receives signals at a higher frequency than if I wasn't. If I was out, I don't know, out at the bars or out, being a jerk or whatever, horse around, or hey, you know what, you got work today, I'm gonna go golf, or I personally can't do that, right? I won't allow myself to do that. I'd like to go play golf, but guess what? I can't. I don't have that freedom yet, right? So if I'm consistently doing those right things, I believe my brain, and I believe the human brain is open to a free flow where you can receive ideas. The question is, do you have the smarts and the balls to act on it? That's what I believe.
Well, with that being said, stay great. Keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully, in a couple more months, we get you back on, or I'm back on yours, and we can continue these conversations. It's always a pleasure, Tim. Love you, and just keep doing what you're doing, brother.